Le Guin also writes about the current state of our society, at least the one in 2012, which seems so long ago. What prompts this blog post is an On This Day feature in the New York Times. Here's what it says and where she goes with it, and really think about us today. This is what the New York Times On This Day feature said. On October 5th, 1947, in the first televised White House address, President Truman asked Americans to refrain from eating meat on Tuesdays and poultry on Thursdays to help stockpile grain for starving people in Europe. Think about that. So, this is what fascinates her. What I'm working hard to imagine or remember is a country whose president asked his people not to eat beef on Tuesdays or chicken on Thursdays because there were starving people in Europe. The Second World War had left the European economy as well as its cities pretty much in ruins, and this president thought Americans would, A, see the connection between meat and grain, and B, be willing to forgo a luxury element of their diet in order to give away a more essential food to hungry foreigners on another continent, some of whom we'd been killing and some of whom had been killing us 2 years earlier. At the time, the request was laughed or sneered at by some and ignored by most. But still, can you imagine any president now asking the American people to deprive themselves of meat once or twice a week in order to stockpile grain to ship to hungry foreigners on another continent, some of them no doubt terrorists? Or asking us to refrain from meat now and then to provide more grain to programs and food banks for the 20 million Americans living in extreme poverty, which means malnutrition and hunger right now. Or actually asking us to do without anything for any reason. Something has changed. Can you imagine? Our world in 1947 had a ton of problems too, a ton. But wow, it makes you think. As the essay continues, she asks an important question. Can America go on living on spin and illusion, hot air and hogwash and still be my country? I don't know. Le Guin died in 2018, so she didn't get to witness all the spin and illusion, hot air and hogwash that followed. On Christmas Eve, we watched The End of All Things. I thought of this movie when I read this essay. Our biggest weakness is our inability to be tolerant and kind. Le Guin also has light essays that aren't related to her cat, like the one about vegetables. Some scientists believe that vegetables have feelings, veg empathy, as Le Guin refers to it. Her spunk and humor is classic Le Guin. Ultimately, we wouldn't live long if we stopped eating everything, and she's so funny about it in this subtle way. She ponders the act of hiring someone to read your mail, and that a someone is really a somebody, yet the bigger picture is envy, people who can hire servants with self-confidence that they're deserving of such servants. And then she'll really make you think on the legitimacy of all that we find on the internet when a quote is credited to her. When she's asked for permission to use a quote, she can't remember writing it. The quote in question is this, and you may have heard it. The creative adult is the child who survived. Yet she never wrote that. After asking her readers for help, she finds out what she actually wrote. I believe that maturity is not an outgrowing, but a growing up. That an adult is not a dead child, but a child who survived. Nothing about creativity. Even when she reaches out to people to tell them she never said that, it still exists on the internet, attributed to Le Guin. It will be there forever, one of the many problems of our digital age. Overall, the book mixes light topics with deeper ones, those that make you laugh with those that make you think. Her subtle sarcasm and funny anecdotes make for a breezy read, yet will leave you with something to relate to in your own life. However, the book didn't have as many profound points as I had liked. Her subtitle, Thinking About What Matters, misled me perhaps. Yet if she wrote these blogs between 2010 and 2016, she would have been in her 80s. My grandma lived to be 93. She was healthy and lived on her own in her own house until she was about 91. My grandma was not a writer by any means, but I think about what was important to her in those later years. I remember seeing a list of all the Wheel of Fortune puzzles on the pages of crossword puzzles. She preferred visitors staying no more than one night. Cardinals were her favorite birds. Maybe by that age, you weed out all the crap in life and focus on those delights. Le Guin wrote about cats and the overuse of the word fuck, which are those little things. And if Ross Gay's The Book of Delights taught me anything, it is those little things that matter most. We should share more delights than complaints. We should giggle much more than we do. If we did, we'd have less time for complaining. And instead of complaining, give people something to ponder. Maybe after reading such an insightful nugget, they'll make subtle changes in their own day-to-day life. Maybe if we all did that, spend more time thinking about what matters, what we're reading, and then questioning our own daily decisions, we might collectively make small changes that lead to better things, positive changes in our tumultuous world. And because No Time to Spare has me thinking about all these things and connecting it to the Book of Delights and even the mortality of the Year of Magical Thinking, I conclude the book a good read. It's definitely worth the read, even if it didn't meet all my expectations. The goal of any book is to leave your reader, with something, preferably something applicable that makes them think, and even better if it makes them do something about it. As Le Guin wrote, what it means to you is what it means to you. And that's the whole point of reading, is it not? To find meaning in it that applies to your life. That's all for this episode. As always, my goal at Booksmart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.